Bavaria, June 6, 1944. Late afternoon. Not the beaches, not the paratroopers in the dark, not the men dying in the surf at Omaha. A reception room near Salzburg, warm with Bavarian light. Guests in dress uniforms. A door opens and Adolf Hitler enters the room. He is radiant. He moves to his guests with something close to joy, and he says, "It's begun at last." Why is Adolf Hitler smiling? 5 miles of Norman coastline are being stormed by 156,000 men. 5,000 ships fill the English Channel from horizon to horizon. The largest military landing in the history of the world is in progress, and the supreme commander of the forces defending it is at a reception, beaming. He is not celebrating a victory. He is celebrating what he is certain is a deception. Certain the real blow is still to come. He's certain he already knows where it will land, and certain he is ready for it. He is wrong. And the reason he is wrong is the story of how D-Day was really won. By the spring of 1944, Germany has held Western Europe for 4 years, but the foundations are cracking. In the east, Soviet armies are pushing westward with a force that is not running out of men or material. In Italy, the line has broken. Hitler himself, in a directive issued the previous November, has warned of consequences of staggering proportions if the Allies succeed in breaching his Atlantic wall. He understands, in the abstract, what is at stake. The command structure Germany has built to meet the invasion is formidable on paper. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt commands in the west. 69 years old, white-haired, Prussian to his marrow, and with a record stretching back to the conquest of Poland. Beneath him, Field Marshal Erwin Rommel commands Army Group B in the north, the divisions holding the coastline most likely to face the Allied blow. Rommel has already staked out his position in the bluntest possible terms. He has told his staff that what is coming will be decided almost before it begins. The first 24 hours, he says, will be decisive. Between them, these two men control approximately 1 million men across 58 divisions. The problem is that those 58 divisions must cover 2,000 miles of European coastline. Half of them cannot move. The Ostbataillonen, formations built from former Soviet prisoners of war, are static units anchored to the concrete of the Atlantic Wall. Quality is uneven. Quantity is insufficient. And both senior commanders know it. This is the arithmetic behind Allied planning. If the Germans know where and when the blow is coming, they hurl the invaders back into the sea. 10 attackers for every defender at the point of maximum exposure. Surprise, therefore, is not a tactical advantage. It is the entire plan. Without it, there is no invasion. But beneath the surface of the German command structure, a structural fault is waiting to detonate. It concerns tanks. Germany has 10 panzer divisions available in the west. They are the only force capable of reaching the beaches in time to drive a landing back into the sea. The question of how to deploy them has become a three-way argument that will never fully be resolved. Rommel wants the armor at the water's edge. He fought Allied air power in North Africa, so he knows what it does to tank columns moving in daylight. A strategic reserve held 50 miles inland will arrive at the beaches a smoking ruin. Strike at the moment of landing, before the men are ashore, before the ship's guns can find their range. That is the only window. Rundstedt disagrees. Mass the armor, hold it back, deliver a concentrated counterattack once the Allied axis of advance becomes clear. This is the orthodox doctrine of armored warfare. He is contemptuous of Rommel's coastal defense theory and privately says so, referring to his younger counterpart behind his back as Marshal Laddie. General Leo Geyer von Schweppenburg, commanding Germany's armored forces in the west, sides with Rundstedt. A central reserve, mass, doctrine. He is not wrong about how armored warfare is supposed to work. So he is wrong about what Allied air power has changed. Hitler, in the end, does what indecisive commanders often do. He splits the difference and satisfies no one. Each army group receives 3 panzer divisions to place as it sees fit. 4 more go into a central reserve, Panzer Group West, under Geier. And those 4 divisions carry a clause that will, on the morning of June 6th, prove catastrophic. They cannot be released without the personal authorization of the Führer himself. The deception begins long before the first ship leaves port. The Allies know they cannot hide an invasion. What they can do is hide where it is going to land. In the months before D-Day, they build an apparatus of fabrication so thorough, so layered, and so specifically calibrated to its target that it functions less like a military operation and more like a long psychological siege. The operation is called Bodyguard, and its centerpiece, Fortitude South, is aimed at one destination, the Pas de Calais. Military logic was already pointing the Germans toward Calais before anyone manufactured a single piece of false evidence. It is the narrowest crossing. It is the closest point. It makes sense. Fortitude is not trying to plant an alien idea inside German thinking. It is trying to water a seed that is already there. In the ports of southeast England, 255 dummy landing craft take shape, steel tubes, buoyant drums, canvas stretched over frames. Seen from the air, they are a fleet preparing to cross. On the ground, teams drag rubber tanks across muddy fields, leaving real tire tracks behind them. Wooden aircraft line fake airfields. At night, men drag car headlamps back and forth to simulate runway activity against the dark. And in Kent, making public appearances, giving speeches, being photographed inspecting troops directly across the strait from Calais, is General George Patton. The Germans fear Patton above every other Allied general. They believe reasonably that he will command the main assault, placing him in Kent with a fictional army. The 1st United States Army Group, FUSAG, is the keystone of the entire architecture. At a London hotel, Patton spots a general he recognizes in the lobby, stops to chat, then calls back over his shoulder, loud enough for anyone within earshot. "See you in the Pas de Calais." Even a German POW general is unwittingly conscripted into the lie. And General Kramer, being repatriated to Germany as an apparent act of good faith, is driven through the southwest of England. But the road signs have been changed, and the corporal in the car makes offhand references to places in the southeast. When Kramer reaches Germany, he hurries to his old friend Rommel and tells him the blow is coming at Calais. But the deepest layer, the layer that holds everything else up, is a man the Germans have codenamed Arabelle. He's 30 years old. He is Spanish. Before the war, he failed as a student, as a businessman, as a cinema owner, and as a soldier. His name is Juan Pujol Garcia. Pujol had decided, before any intelligence agency would work with him, that he wanted to wage a personal war against Hitler. He approached German intelligence and offered himself as a loyal supporter. They accepted, and he began feeding them fabricated intelligence, constructed from newsreels, public broadcasts, and instinct, compelling enough to earn him a handler and a salary. When British intelligence finally agreed to work with him, they gave him the codename Garbo. In London, with his MI5 handler, Thomas Harris, Pujol builds a fictional spy network of 27 imaginary agents spread across Britain. He writes 315 letters, averaging 2,000 words each, to a post office box in Lisbon. His handlers in Germany are so impressed by the network's breadth and detail that they do not bother recruiting real agents in Britain. The entire German intelligence picture of England flows through a single Spanish fantasist in a London safe house. And the Germans are so pleased with Garbo that they award him the Iron Cross for loyal service to the Reich. He is, at this moment, working exclusively for the other side. The Allies know the deception is working, not because they trust their own fabrications, but because they can read German communications. On the 1st of June, a decrypted message from the Japanese ambassador to Germany recounts a conversation with Hitler himself and confirms that the Führer is certain the main Allied blow will cross the Strait of Dover. He believes it because everything he has seen, everything he has been told, everything his intelligence apparatus has gathered tells him so. Every piece of that evidence was manufactured. Before D-Day, Pujol walks the parks of central London. He passes American GIs and their British girlfriends. He knows, now with a precision almost no one else possesses, that many of them will live or die by his ability to keep lying convincingly. The trap is fully built. Now it has to close. The weather, in the end, does half the work. A storm system descends on the English Channel in early June. It is violent enough to force Eisenhower into an agonized delay. Made in a room at Southwick House, while rain hammers the windows, the invasion poised on the edge of abort. But the same storm that nearly ends Overlord before it begins also reaches the German side of the Channel. German meteorologists look at the conditions and declare an invasion impossible. No rational commander would move in this. Rommel boards a staff car for Germany, his wife's 50th birthday. But he has driven himself before dawn for months, inspecting from Holland to Brittany to Normandy, through the autumn and the winter and the wet Norman spring, and told his aide, Captain Lang, "I have only one real enemy now, time." Now, convinced the weather has bought him a few more days, he goes home. His final intelligence assessment before leaving notes that Allied signals traffic and resistance activity, while elevated, are not indicative that an invasion is imminent. Both Rundstedt and his chief of staff had noted the exhaustion in Rommel's face in the weeks prior. He finally gets some rest. Other senior commanders scatter, some to parties, some to wargame exercises. The German defensive apparatus along the Norman coast is at its lowest operational readiness in months. Eisenhower, and working from a narrow window of marginally better weather, gives the order. June 6th. Above the cloud layer, the drone of nearly 10,000 aircraft. Below the clouds, on the water, 5,000 ships moving in 11 columns through force-4 seas. Ahead of the fleet, around 400 small cloth parachutists drop east and west of Normandy, rigged with explosives to crack and pop on landing. SAS operators follow them down with loudspeakers, broadcasting gunfire and shouting into the Norman night. German radar watches clouds of aluminum foil drift toward the Calais coast, reading it as a fleet. The beach sentries look out at dark water. They see nothing. June 6th. 0100 hours. The first German units to make contact are fighting British paratroopers that appear to be falling out of the sky from nowhere, materializing in Norman fields, in orchards, on rooftops, fighting sharp and confused scraps in the dark. The situation maps at German headquarters fill with question marks. At his Corps headquarters, General Erich Marx is watching his maps. He has one leg, lost on the Eastern Front, and no illusions. He recognizes the airborne operation for what it is. He pushes urgently to commit the 21st Panzer Division before dawn, while the beaches are still dark before the Allied ships can find their range. He is told to wait. Permission must come from Army Group B. Army Group B's headquarters is the 12th century chateau at La Roche-Guyon, perched above the Seine. Its commander is not there. Colonel Hans Speidel, Rommel's chief of staff, fields the radio traffic as the situation deteriorates. Army Group B reports up to OB West. OB West reports up to OKW. OKW runs through the Berghof. At the Berghof, the Führer of Germany is asleep, and his aides are too frightened to wake him. At OB West, before the seaborne landings have even begun, Rundstedt, the man who was, until this morning, the German command's strongest believer in the Calais threat, looks at the reports and makes the call. The scale of the airborne operation cannot be a feint. He orders the 12th SS Panzer and Panzer Lehr to move immediately toward Caen. To save time, he moves first and requests authorization after. The authorization does not come. OKW hesitates. What if this is a trap? The Panzer Division stands still. Dawn breaks over Normandy. The coastal defenders in their concrete bunkers look through mist and smoke at a horizon that has overnight transformed into a floating city of steel. 5,000 ships materializing out of the Grey Channel. 5 miles of it. Marx finally gets his answer on the 21st Panzer. Too late for a darkness attack, the division moves anyway. North through the Bocage, the dense ancient hedgerow country of Normandy. It punches between British and Canadian troops, separating Juno and Sword beaches. It reaches the Channel coast. It is the only German armor to fight on June 6th. And it is there, at the water. 70 of its 124 tanks do not come back, with nothing behind it, no follow-up force, no second wave to exploit what it has opened. The division withdraws. One armored division, acting alone and 8 hours late, to reach the point 10 divisions acting together at dawn would have needed to hold. The window it briefly opened closes behind it. Empty. At noon, Hitler wakes. He is briefed. He is certain it is a feint. He holds the reserves. At 4 in the afternoon, 10 hours after Rundstedt first ordered the panzers to move, he releases 2 divisions of Panzer Group West. They reach Caen on June 7th, where they join a defense that is, by now, holding a bridgehead rather than preventing one. By nightfall on June 6th, 155,000 Allied troops are ashore. The window is closed. Somewhere near Salzburg, a man is entering a reception room. Radiant. "It's begun at last," he says. By the time he finishes that sentence, the window is already gone. 3 days pass, the beaches hold, the bridgehead deepens, and inside German High Command, a debate that has been running since the early hours of June 6th reaches a breaking point. Is this the real invasion? Or is it the feint and Calais still to come? There are voices pushing to throw everything at Normandy now, before the bridgehead consolidates into something permanent. There are voices saying, wait. The intelligence picture still points to Calais. Fusag is still there. Patton is still in Kent. The second blow hasn't come, but it will. The debate is live. The window, narrowing, is not yet fully closed. It is June 9th, 1944. In a London safe house, Juan Pujol Garcia sits down at his radio transmitter. The message he sends reaches German intelligence and makes its way to Hitler and OKW. On it states, with the authority of a trusted source backed by a 27-agent network that Germany's own intelligence service has verified to its own satisfaction, that 75 Allied divisions remain stationed in Britain, that the Normandy landings were a diversionary operation designed to draw German reserves away from the main crossing point, that the real blow, when it comes, will strike at Pas de Calais. The debate closes. The reserves stay. The Allies had calculated that the deception might, if everything went perfectly, buy them 14 days. 14 days of German strategic paralysis in which to consolidate the bridgehead before the full weight of Wehrmacht armor arrived. They get 7 weeks. 2 armored and 19 infantry divisions remain anchored near Pas de Calais through July, through August, thus waiting for an attack that will never come. Hitler will not release them. His most trusted intelligence source has told him to wait, and everything he has been led to believe for months tells him the source is right. He is among the last people in Europe to understand what has happened. And the reason he never fully understands it is that the intelligence picture he is weighing contains no independent verification at all. Every piece of confirmation traces back to one source. One man, one radio. He does not know that. He never finds out. June 17th, Wolfsschlucht. 2. Hitler's forward command post near Margival, in northern France, set into a system of concrete bunkers cut into a hillside. Rommel and Rundstedt are both in the room. Between them, more than a century of military service across 4 continents and 2 world wars. Both have come with the same assessment. Rommel speaks first. The front will collapse. The position cannot be held. What is needed is a strategic withdrawal behind the Seine, a fighting retreat now, before the line breaks entirely. Hitler tells them to concentrate on military operations. Rundstedt adds his voice. The situation, he tells Hitler, is beyond containment. The bridgehead cannot be reduced. Hitler does not change his answer. Both men leave the bunker without what they came for. The collapse, when it comes, is rapid. Cherbourg falls on June 27th. 50,000 German prisoners. 300 tanks destroyed. Every division sent west to contain the bridgehead makes the Eastern Front thinner. By July, 58 German divisions are fighting in Normandy, 40% more than were in France before the landings. The reserves, meant to hold the line, are accelerating the defeat. In late July, the Allied line breaks free. The bridgehead becomes a highway, and the Wehrmacht in the west begins to come apart. Historians would later assess what happened in Normandy between June and August 1944 as a greater military catastrophe than Stalingrad, greater than the collapse in North Africa, greater even than the massive Soviet offensive unfolding simultaneously in the East. 7 weeks of Ghost Army paralysis did not cause this alone. The weight of Allied production and Soviet pressure had already made the outcome probable. But those 7 weeks transformed a desperate lodgment that might have been contained into a foothold that could not be dislodged. The deception did not win the war. It opened the door, and what walked through it was overwhelming. And what happened to the people who built that door, or failed to close it, matters. Rommel makes it 6 weeks after Wolfsschlucht II. On July the 17th, Allied fighters strafe his staff car near Vimoutiers. The driver is killed. Rommel's skull is fractured in 3 places. He survives the crash. He does not survive October. 2 German generals arrive at his door with a choice: a public trial or poison, with his name and his family left intact. He takes the poison. He is 52 years old. Marx does not survive June. His staff car is strafed on the 12th, 6 days after the landings he correctly identified, spending every hour since fighting with both hands tied. He does not live to see Cherbourg fall. Rundstedt is dismissed on July 3rd, recalled for the Ardennes, dismissed again in March 1945. He survives the war, and Hitler does not outlive the spring. And then there is Juan Pujol Garcia. After the war, Pujol is afraid. Nazi survivors know the name Garbeau. With MI5's help, he fakes his own death from malaria in Angola in 1949. He moves to Venezuela, to a small oil town called Lagunillas, and then eventually to Caracas. He runs a bookstore. He runs a gift shop. For nearly 4 decades, he lives a quiet life in South America. He's not famous. He's not celebrated. Most people who pass through his shop have no idea that the man behind the counter once sat in a London safe house and, with a radio transmitter and a network of people who did not exist, held 2 armored divisions and 19 infantry divisions in place for 7 weeks while an Allied army poured ashore. He dies in Caracas on October 10th, 1988. He held 2 decorations, and one from Germany, the Iron Cross, for loyalty and faithful service to the Reich. One from Britain, the Order of the British Empire, for services to the Allied cause. Both genuine, both earned. The story opened with the most powerful military leader in Europe, standing in a Bavarian reception room in afternoon sunlight, certain he understood exactly what was happening. It ends with a man who failed at almost everything before the age of 32. A bookshop, a gift shop, a quiet street in Caracas, 2 medals in a drawer somewhere. The Germans gave him one for his loyalty. The British gave him one for his courage. Both were right.